I'm sure you're right. Krishna will take care of you. Okay, so we had 1 week gap to celebrate Lord Balaram's appearance day. And um, so we're going to just take up from where we left off. I just wanted to know if there are any questions from last week. Anybody? No questions? All right. So then that makes it easy. We can get started. So we are on page 76. And we're starting at rendering service to the Lord. Oh, sorry, that's not 76.
78.
No, hold on.
78.
Prabhuji.
1 second. Okay, 78. I'm sorry. 78. Yes. Okay. So someone would like to read the first paragraph?
Can I read it?
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Rendering service to the Lord. It is stated in the Vishnu Rahasya, any person who can arrange for service to the Lord in the same way that a king is given service by his attendants is surely elevated to the abode of Krishna after death. Actually, in India, the temples are just like royal palaces. They are not ordinary buildings because the worship of Krishna should be performed in just the way that a king is worshipped in his palace. So in Vrindavan, there are many hundreds of temples wherein the deity is worshipped exactly like a king. In the Navadviya Purana, it's stated if a person stays in the Lord's temple even for a few moments, he can surely achieve the transcendental kingdom of God.
Thank you, Mataji. So actually, if you go back to page 77, we had finished by reading about Archana, which is worship of the deity in the temple. And rendering service to the Lord is very similar to Archana. The difference is really in the amount of opulence. Archana can be with basically not much opulence, whereas in rendering service, we do all sorts of things. So, for example, ornaments, clothes, the peacock feather, wonderful scent, all those kind of. So basically, Archana with increased opulence is rendering service. So that's the distinction between the two. It's also said that any house where there is no deity or picture of the Lord is like a forest where only animals live. In other words, if there are humans living in a house, it must have at least a picture of the Lord, if not a deity. So that's one point. The second point I wanted to make was that some of us, excuse me, start doing deity worship, and they somehow become very intimate with the deities. That's not allowed. For example, we can't hug the deities, even our home deities. We should not be hugging them. We should be very respectful in front of the deities. It doesn't matter what service we're doing, whether we're waking them up or putting them to rest, we're doing arti, we should be respectful. So, for example, not talk in front of the deities, especially if you're on the altar. If you have any difference of opinion with somebody else, then get out of the altar, get out from in front of the deities before you discuss these kind of things. And as long as we are on Vaidhi Bhakti platform, which we have to observe these formalities of the process. Along the lines with what Mataji just read, Rupa Goswami actually supports the point by saying that even if one stays for one muhurta, anybody knows how long a muhurta is?
One moment,
Huh?
few minutes.
Oh yeah,
Second.
48 minutes. So few minutes, you're right, 48 minutes. That's one muhurta. So even if somebody stays for 1 or 2 muhurtas in a temple, they go to Vaikuntha. Well, so when I read that, my reaction was, wait a minute. There was a time before pandemic, I used to spend all day Sunday, like basically 7:30 a.m. till sometimes 9:30 p.m. So 14 hours every Sunday without fail. And I don't think I'm going to Vaikuntha. So what's the difference? What is the difference? Well, what it really means is that statement by Rupa Goswami that spending even 1 muhurta or 2 muhurtas in a temple open the door to the Vaikuntha planet. But you still have to traverse the path and enter through the gates. And that may take a few lifetimes. And if we commit sinful activities or offenses while we are entering through the door, going to on the way to the Vaikuntha, then we get lost. And it takes much longer to get to the gate. So you have to be very sincere and work very hard at not committing any sinful activities or offenses. Then you get to the gate faster. Another example I can give to explain this point is think of a person who doesn't know which train to take. So he's asking everybody, which train. Finally, somebody points to the right train. So he sits on it, and then you know that he's going to get where he wanted to go. But what happens if one of the intermediate stations, he hears chai garam, samosa le lo, and he gets off the train and buys samosas and tea and starts to enjoy it on the platform, and the train leaves before he can board again. Well, now he's back to square one. He has to wait for the next train whenever it comes, and then make sure that it's the right train. So, is that clear? Does it make sense? Or do you have any questions on that before I move on? Because we often hear lots of questions like, well, it says, take Krishna's name once and you go home back to Godhead. You stay in the temple for 48 minutes and you go back home to Godhead. But it's not happening to us. So what's the reason? So that's what I was trying to explain. Is that clear or no?
Basically, there are no easy fixes.
There are no easy fixes. That's correct. You can't just say, okay, I did it. Okay, and now I'm back to Vaikuntha. Well, no, not so easy. So unfortunately, but that's the rule. Okay, somebody wants to read the next paragraph?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Please go ahead.
The conclusion is that those who are rich men in society should construct beautiful temples and arrange for the worship of Vishnu, so that people may be attracted to visit such temples and thereby be offered the opportunity of dancing before the Lord or chanting the holy name of the Lord, or else of hearing the holy name of the Lord. In this way, everyone will be given the chance to elevate himself to the kingdom of God. In other words, even a common man, simply by visiting such a temple, will be able to attain the highest benedictions, not to mention the devotee who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord in full Krishna consciousness.
Right. So actually, a lot of times people say, well, why do I have to come to the temple? I have a temple in home. Some people...
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Okay, I didn't know where paragraph she just read, so
Okay.
I was...
So Prabhuji, we are at page 78,
Okay.
under the title, Rendering Service to the Lord. Do you see
Yes,
that?
which paragraph? Is
Second
the first
paragraph.
paragraph?
Second paragraph.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Sorry
Sure.
to interrupt you.
No problem. I'm glad you did. So a lot of times people say, why do I have to come to the temple? I have a temple at home. Or some people say, well, my heart is my temple, my body is my temple. So why do I come to your temple? And that's being answered here, that the devotee association, the vibrations, the chanting, etc., are different in a temple and than at home. The Maya is constantly acting upon us. The devotee association and being able to watch those arti, etc., keep us away from the influence of Maya. So, as a matter of fact, one time somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, you are a sadhu. Why do you construct so many big temples? And at that time, Prabhupada had, I think, constructed already 90 plus temples. So Srila Prabhupada asked him, would you come to a secluded place if I was sitting there? And the guy said, no. Well, Prabhupada said, well, that's the idea. People are attracted to big temples. And so they come there and get the benefit of, hopefully, going to Vaikuntha. Okay. Next paragraph, somebody wants to read? Any volunteers?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Please go ahead, Prabhu.
In this connection, there is a statement in the 4th canto, 21st chapter, verse 31 of the Shri Mad Bhagavatam, wherein King Prathu says to his subjects, my dear citizen, please note that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is actually the deliverer of all fallen conditioned souls. No demigod can perform this act of delivering the conditioned souls because the demigods themselves are conditioned. A conditioned soul cannot be delivered another conditioned soul. Only Krishna or his bona fide representative can deliver him. The Ganga's water, which is flowing down from the toe of the Lord Vishnu, falls upon the earthly planet and the other planets, thereby delivers all the conditioned sinful living entities. So what need is there to speak of the deliverance of a person who are always engaged in the service of the Lord? There is no doubt about their liberation, even if they have stocks of sinful activities from many births. In other words, a person who is engaged in the worship of the deity can minimize his stock of sinful reactions coming from many previous births. This process of worshipping the deity has already been described, and one should try to follow these rules and regulations seriously.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So once again, sometimes people ask a question, well, if chanting is the highest process, you can maybe even say hearing and chanting, then what's the need for deity worship? So that question is being answered here, that deity worship purifies us. So no matter how many sinful activities we have done, it eliminates all of them. And it says that what it uses minimizes the stock of sinful reactions coming from many previous births. And so therefore, as long as we're doing it seriously and sincerely, the benefit is there. So that's the first point. Second point is, temple we're talking about is temple of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not demigod temple. Demigods are themselves conditioned souls, and a conditioned soul cannot deliver a conditioned soul. It's like Prabhupada used to say, if a person is bound at feet, hands, and waist and neck, he cannot free up another person who's bound similarly. You need a person who's free to free up the person who's bound. And then Krishna or a spiritual master, a bona fide spiritual master, are the people who can deliver us. Talking about the demigods, Prabhupada once made the comment that a person who wants to cross the material ocean by taking shelter of the demigods is like someone who's trying to cross the ocean holding on to a dog's tail. That's just not possible. The dog himself cannot cross the ocean. How can he help you cross the ocean? Okay. Any questions or comments on that? No? All right. Then let's move on to the next one. Page 79 says singing. Do I have a volunteer?
No one.
Boy, what's the matter? Everybody's silent.
I can do, Prabhuji.
Go ahead, Mataji.
In the Linga Puran, there is a statement about glorifying the singing about the Lord. It is said there, a Brahman who is constantly engaged in singing the glories of the Lord is surely elevated to the same planet as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna appreciates this singing even more than the prayer offered by Lord Shiva.
Yeah, such a great point. Never even thought about that until I read it. And so, I mean, unfortunately, I'm not a singer, so I will not have the benefit of this particular point. But those of us who can sing nicely can definitely take benefit of that. And I remember going to a place called Ahobilam, which is where Lord Nrsimhadev had appeared. And there, Lord Nrsimhadev is in 9 different forms. And one of those forms, it is said that he took to hear a wonderful devotee who used to sing every day and every night about Lord Nrsimhadev. So he used to come and listen to him. And so the point being that Krishna says, I've given you multiple paths to come to me. And you can use the path that's most suitable to your nature, like your proclivities and your nature, what you like. Just use that path, and that's okay. You can still come to me. As long as you're sincere, you're serious, you're endeavoring hard and minimizing your offenses and sinful activities. Okay.
Okay, I have one question here, just a clarification, actually, not a question. The last line, they're singing even more than the prayers offered by Lord Shiva. So we consider Lord Shiva is the topmost Vaishnava. So, like the ordinary person who is singing the glories of the Lord, should he be considered like a higher than the Lord Shiva, or what?
No. So he's not comparing Lord Shiva with the other devotees. Lord Shiva, as you know from Srimad Bhagavatam, is the topmost devotee, right? So what he's saying is that Lord Krishna appreciates the singing even more than the prayers. So when Lord Shiva is offering prayers compared to Lord Shiva singing, he appreciates singing more. Okay. So do you understand what I'm saying? So when Lord Shiva is singing about the Lord, he appreciates that more than when Lord Shiva is offering prayers.
Still confused. Prabhuji, can you repeat it again, please?
Yeah. So let's say Lord Shiva is doing 2 things. He's offering prayers or he's singing. So what's the difference between singing a bhajan and offering prayers? What is a prayer?
Prayer is just to asking for something from the Lord. That is what I would.
Okay. So what is singing?
Singing is just glorifying the Supreme Personality.
Right. Exactly. So Lord says, I appreciate that more than offering of prayers.
Okay, Prabhuji, that clarifies my point. Okay,
right.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? All right, then let's keep going. Sankirtan. So which, nice segue from singing is Sankirtan. Who would like to?
I'll read, Prabhuji.
Okay, Sakhi Swarupa Mataji, go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Sankirtana. When a person loudly chants the glories of the Lord's activities, qualities, form, etc., his chanting is called Sankirtana. Sankirtana also refers to the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord.
Right. So it's saying that Sankirtan is a 3 type. One is activities, the lila, qualities, the gun, form is roop. So basically, this Nam Sankirtan, there is Lila Sankirtan, there's Gun Sankirtan that we talk about. Okay, so Nam Kirtan, Lila Kirtan, and Gun Kirtan. Okay, then we'll talk about each one of them in the next following paragraph. Sakhi Swarupa, you can still continue.
In Vishnu Dharma, there is a statement glorifying this process of congregational chanting. My dear king, the word Krishna is so auspicious that anyone who chants his holy name immediately gets rid of the resultant actions of sinful activities from many, many births. This is a fact. There is the following statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita: a person who chants the holy name of Krishna once can counteract the resultant actions of more sinful activities than he is able to perform. A sinful man can perform many, many sinful activities, but he is unable to perform so many that they cannot be wiped out by one single uttering of Krishna.
Right. So this is the glory of Nam Sankirtan. So basically what we're saying is that not only a person, not only whatever sins a person has performed, but also what he may be capable of performing. So he has not done it, but he may be capable of performing, they go away. However, the requirement is that one has faith in the holy name and not doubt this claim. As soon as you start doubting this claim, and actually there is what's the fifth offense? To consider the glories of the holy name to be imaginary, right? Did I say it right? Okay, nobody wants to say that? Okay, so basically it's an offense to consider the glories of the holy name to be imaginary. So if somebody's doing that, well then it's a big problem. As this person by the name of Gopal Chakravarti found out. And you may remember there's a story about Haridas Thakur was invited by Haranya and Govardhan Majumdar. Anybody know who they are? A very famous Goswami's father and uncle. Okay, Raghunath Das. So they had invited Haridas Thakur to give a discourse on the holy name. And Haridas Thakur made this statement about holy name being so powerful. And Gopal Chakravarti, who was actually a tax collector for these two brothers, Haranya and Govardhan Majumdar, he started arguing, said he didn't agree. Haridas Thakur was saying the real purpose of chanting the holy name is to obtain the love of Krishna, not really to get rid of sins or liberation. So he was going one step further. And Gopal Chakravarti objected to that and said, no, that's not true. And Haridas Thakur said, well, I don't want to argue with you. And Gopal Chakravarti got even more upset and said, if you're right, then may my nose fall off. And if I'm right, may your nose fall off. So that's how he kept quiet, didn't say anything, but these two brothers were very upset. They fired him. They said, we don't want to see your face anymore, get out. And sure enough, within a week, Gopal Chakravarti's nose fell off, proving the point that Haridas Thakur was making, that chanting of the holy name not only gets rid of the sins and gives liberation, but also gives the love of Krishna. But what's the condition for that? Taranatapi sunichena tarori vasahishnana. Amanina manaden kritiniyasadari. And also not commit any of the 10 offenses. So as long as we are meeting those conditions, the chanting of the holy name will result in love of Krishna. And Gopal Chakravarti simply did not understand it. So our problem is, and again, I go back to myself, I've been chanting for I don't know how many decades now, and I'm still here. And the problem with people like me is that we're not chanting the holy name properly, or purely, I should say. And it's like I have a fake gun with no real bullet, and I'm firing. So it still goes pop, pop, pop. It makes the sound of bullet being fired, but there's nothing coming out. It seems like I'm firing real bullets, but I'm not. So similarly, when there's no love in the heart, you hear the sound Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, but it's really not there. Certainly, Krishna, who's not different from the holy name, is definitely not there. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says that the pure name of Krishna comes not from the mouth, but from the heart. So therefore, what it means is that only when the name of the Lord comes out of our mouth through the heart, then it's pure. Otherwise, it's impure and it's like firing a blank bullets. Another example given is by Bhakti Saraswati Maharaj. Sorry, Bhaktivinoda Thakur Maharaj. No, Bhakti Saraswati Maharaj is that it's like taking a capsule, a medicine capsule with nothing inside or sugar inside. Clearly, it will not have the effect. So same thing. The name is not coming from the heart, only from the mouth. It's like fake gun or fake medicine. And that's why people like me are still here, even though chanting for so long. Okay, any comments or questions? All right, then let's move on. Now we talk about Leela Kirtan. Any volunteers?
Should I continue, Prabhuji?
Please do, yeah.
In the 7th canto, 9th chapter, verse 18th of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj offers the following prayers to the Lord. My dear Lord Narasimha, if I can be elevated to the position of your servant, then it will be possible for me to hear about your activities. You are the supreme friend, the supreme worshipable deity. Your pastimes are transcendental, and simply by hearing of them, one can counteract all his sinful activities. Therefore, I shall not care for all those sinful activities because simply by hearing about your pastimes, I shall get out of all the contamination of material attachment.
Right. So again, I point out, he's talking about sinful activities, not offenses. So it's applicable on sinful activities. And basically what it means is that a devotee is never scared of sinful reaction because he knows that they're all counteracted simply from chanting or hearing the pastimes of the Lord. It doesn't mean that devotee is happy to commit sins because chanting and hearing will take care of it. But that would be actually another offense. Namna balat, yes, papa buddhi, committing sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. So that's not what they're talking about. But they're not scared of the results. They're scared of committing sinful activities, but whatever results they have, they're not scared because they know it will be counteracted by simply chanting or hearing the pastimes of the Lord. Okay. Do you want to continue?
Sure, Prabhuji. There are many songs about the Lord's activities. For example, there is the Brahm Samhita sung by Lord Brahma, Narad Pancharatra sung by Narad Muni, and Srimad Bhagavatam sung by Shukadev Goswami. If these songs are heard by any person, he can easily get out of the clutches of material contamination. There should be no difficulty in hearing these songs of God. They are coming down from many, many millions of years ago, and people are still taking advantage of them. So why at this time should one not take full advantage and thus become liberated?
Okay. So once again, the point is being made that pick the song you like, pick the book you like. It doesn't matter. You hear them and you get out of the clutches of material contamination. Okay. Next paragraph talks about example of a gun kirtan, the qualities. So go ahead, Sakhi Swarupa, finish it.
In the first canto, 5th chapter, verse 22 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni tells his disciple Vyasadeva, My dear Vyas, you should know that persons who are engaged in executing austerities and penances studying the Vedas, performing big sacrifices, chanting the hymns of Vedas, speculating on transcendental knowledge, and performing charitable functions have for all their auspicious activities simply to gain a place in the association of devotees and chant the glories of the Lord. It is indicated that chanting about and glorifying the Lord is the ultimate activity of the living entity.
Right. So once again, so many examples given of austerities, penances, studying the Vedas, etc., fire sacrifices. But above them all is simply the association of the devotees, or I should say, chant the glories of the Lord in the association of the devotees. So done. It's done, proven. Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay. Is everyone awake today? Just want to make sure.
This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, which also says the purpose of reading the Vedas and the scriptures is just to know the ultimate supreme personality of God, her Lord Krishna.
Right. Right. Exactly. Okay. Who wants to read the next one?
Can I
Japa.
read, Prabhuji?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, Japa. Chanting a mantra or hymn softly and slowly is called japa, and chanting the same mantra loudly is called kirtana. For example, uttering the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, very softly, only for one's own hearing is called japa. Chanting the same mantra loudly for being heard by all other is called kirtana. The Maha Mantra can be used for japa and kirtana also. When japa is practiced, it is for the personal benefit of a chanter, but when kirtana is performed, it is for the benefit of all others who may hear. I can read the next lines too, Prabhuji.
Sure, please go ahead.
In the Padam Purana, there is a statement for any person who is chanting the holy name either softly or loudly, the path to liberation and even heavenly happiness are at once open.
Okay, thank you. So, very interesting statement. The last line that Prabhuji read. For any person who's chanting the holy name, either softly or loudly, in other words, doing japa or kirtan, the path to liberation and even heavenly happiness are at once open. So that's the least that happens. That's the least. Even a non-devotee can do this. Right? For a devotee, going to heaven is a punishment. Right? Devotee doesn't want to go there, but for non-devotee, this is great. So instead of performing all those austerities and fire sacrifices that was talked about in the previous paragraph, even a non-devotee who doesn't want love of Krishna, just heavenly happiness, can just chant and go to heaven. For a devotee, it's like a punishment. No, I don't want to go. Just by the way, it's nothing to do with what we're reading. Do you know there are 3 types of heaven? One is called Divya Swarga, which means the place where the demigods reside. Then you have Bhami Swarga, like, beautiful places like Switzerland or Kashmir or whatever. And then you have Bil Swarga, which is like the Sutal Palat, for example, where Bali Maharaj is living. So just on the side, it's nothing to do with what we're reading. Anyway, any questions or comments? We will move to the next one. Okay. Who wants to read the next one? Submission.
I can do, Prabhuji.
Please go.
In the Skanda Purana, there is a statement about submission onto the lotus feet of the Lord. It is said that there are those who are sober devotees can offer their submission to Krishna in the following 3 ways. First is some. Can you please help me read this?
Samprarthanatmika. Samprarthanatmika. The prarthana. So three words.
Okay.
Sam is one word, prarthana is another word, atmika is another word. So
Okay.
sam prarthanatmika.
Samprarthnatmika,
Hey, very well said.
feelingly offering prayers. Dainya
Yeah.
humbly submitting oneself, and lalasmayi,
Lalasa
lalasamahi. Thank you, Prabhuji. Desiring some perfectional stage. These desiring some perfectional stage in spiritual life is not sense gratification. When one realizes something of his constitutional relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he understands his original position and wants to be reinstated in this position either as friend, servant, parent, or conjugal lover of Krishna. This is called lal, lalsamai, or very eagerly desiring to go to one's natural position. This lalsamai stage of submission comes in the stage of perfect liberation, which is technically called Swarupa Siddhi. When the living entity understands by perfect spiritual advancement and revelation his original relationship with the Lord.
Right. So three types of submission is being mentioned here. And we'll talk about each one of them in more detail in the following paragraphs. But one point that's been made here is that lalsa, the greed, when it's centered on Krishna, is very good. But it's very bad when centered towards material things. I mean, it's obvious, but I just want to make the point that we're talking about lalsa for Krishna and the relationship with Krishna, not anything material. Okay, so the next paragraph talks about an example of some prarthanatmika submission. So by the way, sam is samyak, which means complete. Prarthana is prayer. Atmika is the one who's actually doing it very sincerely. So this is very sincere but complete, with sincere prayer for complete submission. Okay? All right, somebody wants to read this? Or you can just continue.
I can continue, Prabhu, if nobody is.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. In the Padma Purana, there is a statement of submission in feeling by devotees praying to the Lord. My Lord, I know that young girls have natural affection for young boys, and the young boys have natural affection for the young girls. I am praying at your lotus feet that my mind may become attracted onto you in the same spontaneous way. For example, the example is very appropriate. When a young boy or girl sees a member of the opposite sex, there is a natural attraction without the need for any introduction. Without any training, there is a natural attraction due to the sex impulse. This is a material example, but a devotee is praying that he may develop the similar spontaneous attachment for the Supreme Lord, free from any desires for profit or without any other cause. This natural attraction for the Lord is the perfectional stage of self-realization.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So this last line is very meaningful. This natural attraction for the Lord is the perfectional stage of self-realization. So compare with where we are today in terms of our relationship with the Lord. Is our attraction natural at this time? No, it's not. It's either out of fear, it's either out of instructions by somebody, or it's the Vedic or scriptural injunctions, or we just trying it out. It's not natural, it's not spontaneous. And it comes and goes also. It's not sthayi, it's not permanent. So therefore, it's saying this natural attraction that they're talking about is the perfectional state of self-realization, which means we are above Vaidhi Bhakti now. We got some real feelings. And bhakti is all about feeling, as you know. Bhakti is all about feeling, nothing else. If there are no feelings, there's no bhakti. So this natural attraction is basically talking about that feeling in the heart for the Lord. Okay, any questions? Okay. Next one is example of Danya Bodhika, which tells you how humble you are. So somebody wants to read that? Or do you want to
Can I read,
continue?
Prabhuji?
Okay, go ahead, please. Yeah, go ahead.
In the same Padma Purana, there is a statement about submission and humbleness. It is stated there, my dear Lord, there is no sinful living entity who is more of a sinner than myself, nor is there a greater offender than myself. I am so greatly sinful and offensive that when I come to confess my sinful activities before you, I am ashamed. This is a natural position of a devotee. As far as conditioned soul is concerned, there is no wonder that he has some sinful activities in his past life, and this should be admitted and confessed before the Lord. As soon as this is done, the Lord excuses the sincere devotee, but that does not mean that one should take advantage of the Lord's causeless mercy and expect to be excused over and over again while he commits the same sinful activities. Such a mentality is only for shameless persons. Here it is clearly said, when I come to confess my sinful activities, I become ashamed. So, if a person is not ashamed of his sinful activities and continues to commit the same sinful activities with the knowledge that the Lord will excuse him, that is the most nonsensical proposition. Such an idea is not accepted in any part of the Vedic literature. It is a fact that by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one becomes washed clean of all sinful activities from his past life. But that does not mean that after being washed off, one should again begin sinful activities and expect to be washed again. These are nonsensical propositions and are not admitted in devotional service. Someone may think, for a whole week I may commit sinful activities, and for one day I will go to the temple or church and admit my sinful activities, so that one can become washed up and again begin my sinning. This is most nonsensical and offensive and is not acceptable to the author of Bhakti Rasamrita.
Some very strong words. So just going back to the beginning of the paragraph, where the professor was talking about the devotee saying to the Lord, there's no one who's a greater offender than myself. I'm so sinful and offensive that I'm ashamed to even come to you for asking for forgiveness. So it reminded me of a very famous bhajan by Narottam Das Thakur, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More. In that, I think it's in that one, where he says that Mosama Patite Prabhu Na Paye Vyar. So Narottam Das Thakur, one of the topmost devotees of Lord Chaitanya, he's saying there's no one more fallen than me. And that's the humility. Danya Bodhika basically means the realization of my humility, of a pure devotee who's saying there's no one more fallen than me. So again, I'm more into the details, but story about Lord Krishna asking Duryodhan to find somebody who's better than him, and ask Yudhishthira to find somebody who is worse than him. And they both came back with an answer no, because Yudhishthira couldn't find anybody who was worse than him. And the demon-like Duryodhan couldn't find anybody better than him. So the point being that devotees always have this humble attitude that they are the worst. But that's humility, that's not self-pity, by the way. I want to make sure that you understand that. Similarly, it says that if we go and confess to the Lord, apologize, the Lord will forgive. But that doesn't give us license to do the same thing again and again, which is what the Christians do, as Prabhupada is hinting at, that every Sunday they go and say, Father, I have sinned, and they blurt it all out, and then Monday they start the same activities again. Prabhupada is saying that doesn't work, and that's not acceptable to Rupa Goswami. Okay, any questions or comments?
Prabhu, I never heard about the story of Yudhishthira and Duryodhana.
Oh, is that
Thank
right?
you for sharing them.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
of course, that Nectar of Instruction says this in the first verse, right? It's like the elephant, bathing elephant. Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. You're welcome. Anybody else, any questions or comments? Okay, all right. Then let's move to the next paragraph, which talks about Lalasa Mai.
You want me to continue, Prabhu?
Please go ahead.
Sorry, Mataji, if you want to read, you can continue. In the Narad Pancharatra, there is a statement of submission accompanied by the desire for perfection. The devotee says, My dear Lord, when shall that day come when you will ask me to fan your body? And according to your pleasure, you will say, You just fan me in this way.
Hmm.
The idea in this verse is that the devotee is desiring to personally fan the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means that he is desiring to become the personal associate of the Supreme Lord. Of course, any devotee in any capacity, either as a servant, friend, or conjugal lover, always has direct association with the Lord. But according to his different individual tastes, a person desires for just one of these relationships. Here, the devotee is desiring to become a servant of the Lord and desires to fan the Lord, as does his internal energy, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. He also wishes that the personality of Godhead will be pleased to give him directions as to how to fan. This submission which transcendental desire, lalasa my vignapti,
Yeah.
is the highest perfectional stage of spiritual realization.
Right. So basically, this is where you realize your Swarup Siddha, or Siddha Swarup, I should say, and you establish the relationship with a particular mellow, and you are desiring to establish that. So that's the Lal Sabha. And once we get that, so some might say, well, if my duty is to just fan, that's my only duty, will I not get bored? And the answer is no. There's so much pleasure in the service that a servant never wants to give it up, never wants to change, is never bored. Actually, a more mundane example of that is that if you look at the structure of Jagannath Puri, there are people whose only job, they only have one job, whatever that is. It could be cleaning the pots, it could be bringing the water, it could be weaving a rope, it could be blowing the conch shell, it could be just one small thing for which they get paid the whole year. That's the only service they do. And anybody in their family, that's the only service they do. But there's so much pleasure in that, they're not bored, and they enjoy this day in and day out. Okay. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, we can move to the next paragraph. If no one's volunteering, Prabhu, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mataji.
Okay. In the same Narad Panchatantra, there is another expression of submission where the devotee says, My dear Lord, O lotus-eyed one, when will that day come when I, on the bank of Yamuna, I shall become just like a madman and continue to chant your holy name, while incense tears flow from my eyes? This is another perfectional stage. Lord Chaitanya also desired that a moment will appear unto me as 12 years of time, and the whole world will appear to me as vacant on account of not seeing you, my dear Lord. One should feelingly pray and become eager to render his particular type of service to the Lord. This is the teaching of all great devotees, especially Lord Chaitanya. In other words, one should learn how to cry for the Lord. One should learn the small techniques, and he should be very eager and actually cry to become engaged in same particular type of service. This is called laulyam. And such tears are the price for the highest perfection. If one develop this laulyam, or excessive eagerness for meeting and serving the Lord in the particular way, that is the price to enter into the kingdom of God. Otherwise, there is no material calculations for the value, the trick of the ticket by which one can enter the kingdom of God. The only price for such entrance is this laulyam, lalasamai, or desire and great eagerness.
Right. So please, everybody, memorize this last sentence. Like, literally engrave it in your head. The only price for entrance to the spiritual world or obtain Krishna Bhakti is the lolyam lalasamai, or desire and great eagerness to serve the Lord. The only price for entrance to the spiritual world is the desire to serve and the great eagerness with which you want to serve. This is so profound, and this is the essence of everything you read so far. We have to have the great desire and great eagerness to serve the Lord. Then and then only the Lord provides these opportunities. No amount of material price, material things can get us that result. Developing an intense hankering for Krishna consciousness is basically what the Lord Chaitanya is teaching. As a matter of fact, if you recall the dialogue between Raman Roy and Lord Chaitanya, Raman Roy said, Tatra lolyam api mulyam ekalam, which means Krishna consciousness can be obtained only by paying one price. What is that price? Somebody answer it for me. What is that price?
Lolyam,
Lolyam.
greediness.
The intense greed to obtain that service, Krishna consciousness. So please never forget this. Now, just as an aside, Tulsi Arti is all Lalsamai. Sevadhikar diya karo nij dasi. That's all Lalsa. Right? The whole Tulsi prayers is Lalsamai. Just expressing the desire to serve the Lord. Karo nij dasi. Right? Every paragraph, every stanza in that is expressing the desire to serve. Right? Any questions or comments? Okay, all right then. Let's go to the next one. Reciting notable prayers.
I'll
Okay,
read it, Prabhuji.
please go ahead.
According to great learned scholars, the whole Bhagavad Gita contains many authorized prayers, especially in the 11th chapter, where Arjuna prays to the universal form of the Lord. Similarly, in the Gautamiya Tantra, all the verses are called prayers. Again, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are hundreds of prayers to the Lord, so a devotee should select some of these prayers for his recitation. In Skand Puran, the glories of these prayers are stated as follows. Devotees whose tongues are decorated always with the prayers to Lord Krishna are always given respect, even by the great saintly persons and sages, and such devotees are actually worshipable by the demigods.
Yeah. So actually, it's talking about all these prayers. And as a matter of fact, in our Wednesday classes, we've been doing prayers by different devotees in Srimad Bhagavatam, and we found there's about 25 of them. And we've been doing it for, much more than 6 months now. And reciting notable prayers should become part of our daily routine. Things like Govindam Adi Purusham, Shikshashtakam, Tulsi Arti, they're all, prayers that we should do every day. We know that Gajendra offered prayers, which he remembered from his past life, actually, when he was king. Dyumna, who had been cursed by Agastya Muni. So the point is that we should memorize these prayers and chant them every day. It is said that when a devotee in trouble prays to Krishna, Krishna listens. So the devotee should recite these prayers during any type of calamity that they're facing. Well, if you don't know any, then simply Hare Krishna Mahamantra is fine, because it contains all prayers, contains all the stavas and all the stotras and everything. So if nothing else, Hare Krishna Mahamantra is fine. But sorry, and we should understand that Hare Krishna Mahamantra is also begging for mercy from Radharani to take us to Krishna. So that's also begging. That's also prayer. Okay. Then goes on to talk about Skanda Purana, which says that devotees who are praying to Lord Krishna, they are given a lot of respect by other sages and saintly persons, because, no, sorry, and they're even worshipable by the demigods. What that means is that these devotees are greater than demigods, who are devotees but not pure devotees, right? They are what's known as Karma Mishra devotees, because they want to enjoy their position, their luxuries, and all the other things that they have, but they go to Krishna when they're in trouble. So even though they understand the importance of pure devotional service, they're not able to perform it because of their attachment to the luxuries that they have, but they appreciate pure devotees very much and they worship the pure devotees. Okay, any questions or comments? If not, let's move on to the next two paragraphs. Anyone?
I can continue, Prabhu.
Please continue, yeah.
Those who are less intelligent want to worship different demigods for some material gain rather than worship Krishna. But here it is stated that a devotee who's always engaged in offering prayers to the Lord is worshipable even by the demigods themselves. The pure devotees have nothing to ask from any demigod. Rather, the demigods are anxious to offer prayers to the pure devotees. In the Narsimha Puran, it is stated, any person who comes before the deity of the Lord Krishna and begins to chant different prayers is immediately relieved from all the reactions of sinful activities and become eligible without any doubt to enter into the Vaikuntha Loka.
Right. So basically, it's repeating what we just talked about, but re-emphasizing the same point. Okay. Any questions or comments? We've moved to the next one.
I can read, Prabhu.
Please go ahead.
My favorite, partaking
Okay.
of prasada. There is this specific statement in the Padma Purana. A person who honors the prasada and regularly eats it, not exactly in front of the deity, along with charanamrita, the water offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, which is mixed with seeds of the tulsi tree, immediately can achieve the results of pious activities, which are obtained through 10,000 performances of sacrificial rites.
Hari
Jai.
bol. Hari bol. So, so first say, do not eat prasadam in front of the deities. So this is why we always close the doors or put a screen or something. We're eating in the same room as where the altar is. So that's one point. Second point is the charanamrit. Then we'll talk about that in a minute. Very, very important to achieve the results of, achieve more results than any kind of pious activities or fire sacrifice that you could think of. Actually, Rupa Goswami says that 100 million fire sacrifices do not equal partaking prasadam. So, honoring prasadam, partaking prasadam is not an ordinary activity. Actually, somebody told me, I haven't seen it, but somebody told me that in ISKCON Tirupati, there's a sign that says anyone who wastes even a few grains of prasadam has to spend that many years in hell. So I've been there, but I don't remember seeing the sign, but somebody said, no, it's definitely there. Maybe in the prasadam hall is there. But very powerful. Anyone who wastes even a few grains of prasadam has to spend that many years in hell. But basically, Krishna is so merciful, prasadam being non-different from Krishna, that just by honoring prasadam, you can go to Vaikuntha. And this is why we don't use the word eat prasadam. We don't say we would eat prasadam. We say we're honoring prasadam, we're accepting prasadam, we're partaking in prasadam, but we don't say we eat. So again, you can say we serve deities by worshiping them. We worship scriptures by anybody? How do we worship the scriptures?
By reading them.
By reading them, by studying them. Similarly, we serve prasadam by partaking in it or honoring it. Prasad Seva is the name of prayer honoring prasadam by Bhaktivinoda Thakur that we chant every time we have honor prasadam. Prasadam is a very, very important weapon against Maya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written a set of prayers called Sharanagati. In that he says, I'm not sure I remember it exactly, but something like Jugal Murti Dekhya Mora Param Anand Hoy, Prasad Seva Karite Hoy Sakal Prapatcha. It basically means that when we honor prasadam, then all our material attachments disappear completely. That's why we can become eligible to go to Vaikuntha, become pure devotees. And I'm sure everyone on this call knows somebody who started his devotional service by coming to the temple only for prasadam. I personally know many people who have confessed to doing that. Okay, any questions or comments?
Prabhuji, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Prabhuji, why do we cover deities when we eat prasadam?
Yeah.
Like, what's the reason behind that?
Yeah. So basically, it's the respect for the deities saying, you can watch me enjoy prasadam. So we don't do that. Yeah. So we close the doors out of respect for the deities, and then we honor prasadam. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Okay. Then next is Charnamrit. So who would like to talk about drinking Charnamrit?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Please go ahead.
Charnamrit is obtained in the morning while the Lord is being washed before dressing. Scented with perfumes and flowers, the water comes gliding down through his lotus feet and is collected and mixed with yogurt. In this way, this Charnamrit not only becomes very tastefully flavored, but also has tremendous spiritual values. As described in the Padma Purana, even a person who has never been able to give in charity, who has never been able to perform a great sacrifice, who has never been able to study the Vedas, who has never been able to worship the Lord, or in other words, even one who has never done any of pious activity will become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God if he simply drink the Charnamrit, which is kept in the temple. In the temple, it is the custom that the Charnamrit is kept in a big pot. The devotees who come to visit and offer respect to the deities take 3 drops of Charnamrit very submissively and feel themselves happy in transcendental bliss.
Right. Which means we should
Right.
honor Charnamrit every day, just like we honor prasadam. I got a lot of notes on the benefits of drinking Charnamrit, but I'm struggling against time. So what maybe I should do is I should move to the next section. And with this time left, I'll come back to the conversation about the benefits of honoring Charnamrit. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, all right. So let's do that. So next paragraph,
I'll read, Prabhuji.
please go ahead.
Smelling the incense or flowers offered to the deities. In the Hari Bhakti Shuddhodaya, there is a statement about the incense which is offered in the temple. When the devotees smell the good flavor of the incense which is offered to the deity, they thus become cured of the poisonous effect of material contamination, such as one as much as one becomes cured of a snake bite by smelling the prescribed medicinal herbs. The explanation of this verse is that there is an herb found in the jungle that expert persons know how to use to revive the consciousness of one who's bitten by a snake. Simply by smelling that herb, one becomes immediately relieved of the poisonous effects of the snake bite. The same example is applicable when a person comes to visit the temple and smells the incense offered to the deity. He is cured at that time from all the material contamination.
Right. So basically, very appropriate example of snake bite, because one becomes unconscious after what is bit by a snake. Similarly, one under the influence of Maya is unconscious in the sense of consciousness towards Krishna. Lord Chaitanya has there's a very famous bhajan where Lord Chaitanya is saying, Jeev Jago. And he calls the lap of the Maya as Pishachir Kole. So, a person under the influence of Maya doesn't recognize the danger he's in. And Lord Chaitanya is saying, please wake up. And the incense wakes up the soul. In other words, the smelling of incense makes one Krishna conscious. Okay. Any questions or comments? Or we move to the next paragraph. Okay, somebody go ahead, please.
Any devotee coming into the temple should always offer something to the deity: fruit, flowers, incense, etc. If one cannot offer anything in cash, something else must be offered. In India, the system is that all the ladies and gentlemen who come in the morning to visit the temple bring so many things. Even one morsel of rice or one morsel of flour can be offered. It is a regulative principle that one should not go to see a saintly person or the deity in the temple without any offering. The offering may be very humble or it may be priceless. Even a flower, a little fruit, a little water, whatever is possible must be offered. So when a devotee comes to offer something to the deity in the morning, he is sure to smell the good flavor of the incense, and then at once he will become cleansed of the poisonous effect of material existence. Sorry.
Right. So I don't know how many of you knew this point, but it's a very, very important point that we should not go to the temple empty-handed. To take something, if nothing, just $5 cash, do something as a gift to the Lord. It says here, even one morsel of rice or one morsel of flour, but something. I've seen people bring one banana, and that's fine. They're bringing something, one apple, at least you're bringing something. Of course, if we are able to afford a little bit more, we should. Just because Krishna says pattam pushpam phalam toyam doesn't mean we offer him a flower and that's it, or a leaf. It should be according to our ability, our means, but something should be there. If somebody is ignorant of this, what can we do? But we should understand, we are devotees, or at least aspiring devotees, we should understand the importance of taking a gift for the Lord when we go visit the temple. Okay. All right. Next paragraph.
I
It
should
is
read.
stated.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Mataji.
Go ahead. Sonam, go ahead.
Sorry, Mataji. It
It's
is
okay.
stated in the Tantra Shastra, if the smell of the garland that was offered to the deity in the temple enters into a person's nostrils, immediately his bondages of sinful activities becomes cleared. And even if one has no sinful activities, still by smelling such remnants of flowers, one can advance from Mayavadi to devotee. There are several instances of this. a prime one being the advantage of the four Kumaras. They were impersonalists, Mayavadis, but after smelling the remnants of flowers and incense in the temple, they turned to become devotees. From the above verse, it is appeared that the Mayavadis or impersonalists are more or less contaminated. They are not pure.
Correct. So I'm just thinking about an example where many years ago I offered flower to a young girl, 16, 17-year-old, and she said no. And I said, why? She said, this is self gratification. And she was totally wrong and very unfortunate. But here are the benefits of smelling the garland or the flowers that have been offered to the Lord. It says, just from smelling, bondage to sinful activities becomes clear. And the example is being given of the Kumaras, who were actually impersonalists and they became devotees. So very, very beneficial to smell the garland the Lord has put on, or the flowers have been offered to the Lord. Okay, final last paragraph.
It is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, one who has not washed off all reactions of sinful activities cannot be a pure devotee. A pure devotee has no more doubts about the supremacy of personality of Godhead, and thus he engages himself in Krishna consciousness and devotional service. A similar statement is in the Agastya Samhita. Just to purify the impurities of our nostrils, we should try to smell the remnants of flowers offered to Krishna in the temple.
Right. So how do we purify our ears?
By hearing the holy name,
How do we purify our tongue?
by chanting the holy name,
How do we purify our eyes?
by taking the darshan,
And how do we purify our nostrils?
by
smelling the
smelling
flower.
the incense and
flowers and
Right,
Flowers.
right. So
Incense.
again, never forget this. I mean, all these points are so important. The limbs of devotional service, but so, so, so important. Okay, if there are any questions, otherwise we can move to the next one, which is touching the deity.
Can I read it, Prabhuji?
Please go ahead, Prabhu.
In the Vishnu Dharmottara, there is a statement about touching the lotus feet of the Lord. It is said once a person who is initiated as a Vaishnava and is executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness has the right to touch the body of the deity. In India, there are agitations during Gandhi's political movement because the low caste classes of men like street sweepers and chandals are prohibited according to the Vedic system from entering the temple. Due to their unclean habits, they are prohibited, but at the same time they are given other facilities so they may be elevated to the higher grade of devotional service by associating with pure devotees. A man born in any family is not bad, but he must be cleansed. That cleansing process must be adopted. Gandhi wanted to make them clean simply by stamping them with the fictitious name Harijan, children of God. And so there was a great tug of war between the temple owners and Gandhi's followers. But anyway, the present law is the law of all scriptures. That is, anyone is purified, he can enter into the temple. Actually, this is the position. Only one who is properly initiated, who is properly following the rules and regulation can either and touch the deity, can enter and touch the deity, not all. And one who is touching the body of the deity following such regulative principle is immediately delivered from the contamination of material sins, and all of his desire becomes fulfilled without delay.
Yeah. So basically saying the importance of second initiation in ISKCON terminology, but second initiation in a regular, proper sense, which means properly following the rules and regulations, properly chanting, properly doing Gayatri, etc., and doing lots of service. Then they can do deity worship service and they can touch the deity. Massaging the deity's lotus feet, etc. is great, but not if you're not qualified. And it's a real struggle within ISKCON, where everybody wants to get second initiation for the sake of status, whether they are qualified or not, whether they're practicing properly or not. That's a real issue in ISKCON. But if you're doing it properly, you're authorized to enter the altar, touch the deity, massage the lotus feet, change the dress, etc., etc. And if you're able to do that, then all desires become fulfilled without delay. And clearly they talk about the spiritual desires here. Okay. Any question? Otherwise, we can move to the next point, seeing the deity.
Can I read, Prabhuji?
Please go ahead.
Seeing the deity. In the Vara Purana, there is a statement praising this, praising the seeing of the deity of Sri Krishna in the temple. A devotee says there, "My dear Vasundhara, any person who goes to Vrindavana and sees the deity of Govindadev is free from the courthouse of Yamaraj and is allowed to enter into the highest planetary system in which reside the demigods. This means that even an ordinary person who goes to Vrindavana out of inquisitiveness and by chance sees the temple, especially that of Govindadev, even if he is not elevated to the spiritual kingdom, is still assured promotion to the higher planetary systems. This means that simply by visiting the deity of Govinda in the Vrindavana, one becomes highly elevated in pious life."
Right. So please note, it's not saying going to Golok Vrindavan Dham. For that, you have to be a pure devotee. But point being made is that even if you are non-devotee, an ordinary person, and not going out of devotion, but out of inquisitiveness, and not making a deliberate attempt, but by chance seeing Govinda, then that person is assured of promotion to the higher planetary systems. It may not happen immediately, but sooner or later it will happen. But such a person will obtain devotional service later on at some point in time in their lifetimes. And seeing the deity is equivalent to, it's greater than performance of pious activities. Okay. That's about it. Any other questions or comments? Okay, otherwise we're going to go to the next one, observing Aarti and celebrations of the Lord.
I should read.
Please go ahead.
In the Skanda Purana, there is the following description of the result of seeing Aarti, worship of the deity. If someone sees the face of the Lord while Aarti is going on, he can be relieved of all sinful reactions coming from many thousands and millions of years past. He is even exhausted from the killing of Brahman or similar prohibited activities. As we have already explained, there are different ceremonies in the ceremonies to be observed, such as the birthday of Krishna and the birthday of Lord Ramachandra and birthday of some prominent Vaishnavas and ceremony of Jhulan Yatra with the Lord sing on the swing and Dola Yatra, the Lord's activities in the month of March. In all festivals, the Lord is seated on a car and the car moves through different streets of the city so that people may take advantage of visiting the Lord. In the Vaishnava Purana, it is said in such a ceremony, if even a Chandal, dog eater, Simply out of curiosity, see the Lord on the card. He becomes counted as one of the associates of Vishnu. In the Agni Purana, it is stated, any person who is gladness sees the worship of the deity in the temple will obtain the result of Kriya Yoga, which is described in the Pancharatra scripture. Kriya Yoga is a system of practice, much like practice devotional service, but it is especially meant for the mystic yogic. In other words, by this gradual process of mystic yogis are eventually evaluated to the devotional service of the Lord.
Right. Sorry. So it is said that one observing the arti gets the same benefit as the one performing arti, as long as the one observing is focused, looking at the face of the Lord and not thinking about other stuff and not looking at what everybody else is doing. Our problem is, and I hear this all the time, that people have something better to do when the arti is going on. Now they want to chat about some totally unrelated things, or they want to see people say Hare Krishna to people, on and on and on. Arti is meant to be very serious activity, and if you do it properly, observe it properly, then the benefits are very great. But we have to follow. Our problem is we don't want to follow the rules. And I'm thinking about the story that Prabhupada used to tell. The wife is telling the husband to chant, chant, chant. The husband keeps saying can't, can't, can't. People have their own ideas, people have their own concocted processes, and they don't want to go with what's authorized. It's sad, but that's what it is. Let's see. Along with the Aarti, is also talking about all the celebrations we do, and there's one happening tomorrow, where it is very, very beneficial to observe and take darshan of the Lord. Now, it's very interesting comment in the second paragraph at the end of it. It says, in the Bhavishya Puran, it is said, in such a ceremony, even a dog eater, if even a dog eater simply out of curiosity sees the Lord on the cart, he becomes counted as one of the associates of Vishnu. Now, that sounds like an exaggeration, doesn't it? But again, the point is that if the person observing is doing with all the sincerity and devotional feelings in the heart, they do become that. They said that lost darshan is never wasted, but you have to receive it properly. Similarly, says Agni Purana, saying, when a person sees the Lord or the worship of the Lord with gladness in the heart, like you're happy to see it, then you get the proper results. If you're doing it because you happen to be there, or because somebody else told you to, or because your wife or husband is holding hands and I've got to stay here and watch, then it doesn't work. Okay. Questions, comments? No questions or no comments, then that's the end of the session today.
Very interesting chapter, Prabhuji. Very, very interesting. And
yeah, very important, very important. We have to literally memorize all the points that are made, because
has to be put into our practical life, Prabhuji,
yeah,
our
exactly,
everyday life.
Exactly. We should internalize these things and implement in our life. That's the only way to make progress. Otherwise, as it talks about throughout this chapter, it just becomes a pious activity. You can go to heaven, you can become richer, but that's not the purpose. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Prabhuji, you were going to tell something about Charanamrit.
Yeah, so
The
it's
glories.
9:31. If you want to stay and listen, I'm happy to do that. I made some notes. And again, for those of you who need to go, it's fine. This is over and above what our syllabus is today. But again, you're most welcome to stay, but you don't have to. All right, so let's do that. So first of all, what is Charnamrit? Charnamrit is the water or a combination of some liquids that have been used to wash the body of the Lord. It could even be Shaligram Shila, all the way from head to his toes. So that's basically what Sharanamrit is. And the notes that I made basically are from a book called Hari Bhakti Vilas. So I would say 90% are from that book, I should say. And so, yeah, I'll take maybe 10 minutes to talk about that. So first of all, the process to do that is to use the spoon on in your left hand and drop 3 drops of Charanamrit on your right hand. And as we are going to sip it, we chant a particular mantra. It's also from Hari Bhakti Vilas, or something like Akal Mrityu Haranam, Sarva Vyadhi Vinashanam, Vishnu Padodakam Pitva, Shirasha Dharyami Aham. It basically means that the Charanamrit removes untimely death and frees us from all kinds of diseases. I therefore accept this Charanamrit emanating from washing the lotus feet of the Lord, and having sipped it, I place it on my head. So that's the process. You sip it and you wipe your hand on your head. That's the proper process for accepting or honoring Charanamrit. So that's the first thing. Same Hari Bhakti Vilas also says that the water from the lotus feet of Sri Radha and Krishna gives us pure love. And the devotee says, having drunk that water with great joy and devotion, I pour that water upon my head. So again, we wipe. Excuse me. Now, not just Charanamrit, but also, how we have water in the conch shell to offer to the Lord. If that water has been seen by the Lord and we touch it to our head, then we become free from fear of punishment, any distress, any degradation, any fire, any bad planets, black magic, snakes, devils, all those kind of things. All these things run away in different directions if they find that we have put a drop of water on our head from the conch shell, which was offered to Lord Krishna. So that's another side note. Now, we also have Shaligram. So taking the Charanamrit from Shaligram is also very, very glorious. What was it? Yeah, I think I mixed my notes here. So it's continuing with the conch shell. It says the water which is within the conch shell, which is, you circulate around the head of the Lord 7 times. If anyone puts such water on his head, then there's no need for that person to take bath in the Ganges. And that's why most temples have the practice where once the water has been offered to the Lord, is sprinkled on people's head. So that all the congregation members who are watching Aarti is sprinkled on their head. And that's the reason for that. Any water that's been seen by the Lord or has been used to wash Shaligram Shila is more purifying than any water from any place of pilgrimage. It's more purifying than performance of 100 sacrifices. They remove the sins, all kinds of sins of a person. Anybody who drinks the water that's been used to wash Shaligram Shila, they don't need to drink millions of gallons of Panchagavya. It's drinking that water is more than sufficient. Anybody who does that, just drink the water used to wash Shaligram, will never take birth again. There's another note that says you bathe in Narmada, you get purified after 1 week. You bathe in Ganges, you get purified immediately. You take darshan of Yamuna, you become purified. But in Kali Yuga, one becomes purified just by remembering the water that washed the lotus feet of Lord Hari. Just by remembering it, not even touching it, not even drinking it, not putting on your head, just by remembering.
Mm.
Sorry?
July night.
Oh, okay. If someone drinks the Charnamrit, then you get the benefit, which is 100,000 times more than worshipping 10 million Shivalingas. Even if a person is impure with unlimited bad habits or is implicated with previous sins, simply by touching Charnamrit becomes purified. If somebody at the time of death touches to their head or other parts of the body, Charnamrit, then even the most sinful person will not go to the planet of Yamaraj. A person drinking Charnamrit becomes free from all kind of diseases. Actually, somebody told me that Prabhupada's sister, who was known as Pishima, once said that once her son had cholera, and she cured him simply by giving him Charnamrit. That's how powerful it is. Okay, let's see. There's some other notes here. If somebody has eaten impure foods from someone or has drunk water left from a great sinner, then all those sins coming from that activity are washed away by drinking Charnamrit. Let's see. Anybody who puts his body while drinking Charnamrit basically pushes Yamraj away and gets Vishnu Dutas to come and take him to the abode of Lord Vishnu. If somebody wants to atone some sins or remove sins, they certainly drink Charnamrit, especially Shaligram Charnamrit. Oh, if you drink Charnamrit, you don't have to do Achman again or wash your hands or mouth to be pure. That leaves you pure. That's a very important point. As a matter of fact, it's an offense to wash your hands after taking Charnamrit. It's like Lord Shiva says, it's like you have killed a Brahmin. So do not wash your hands after taking Charnamrit.
But Prabhuji, when we take the Charnamrit, which is the Panchagavya, that's sweet, right? Sometimes it's honey in there.
So say again.
And in most of the
sorry, start again.
So I was saying that when we take the Charnamrit, which is Panchagavya, because there's honey in there, that's sweet, right? And in most of the temples, I don't know most of, but I know about Delhi and Chandigarh, they've kept the pot to wash hands besides the
you're right.
Charnamrit.
They do that in Toronto also. But this is saying, no, don't do that. This is Lord Shiva saying. So actually, we should talk to our temple authorities and say, look, this is contradicting what Hari Bhakti Vilas is saying.
Yeah, it's like inviting everybody to do sin.
Yeah, no, you're right. Good point, because I remember now. Yeah, Toronto also says the same thing. As a matter of fact, usually somebody stands there to wash your hands.
Right, right.
So yeah, very good point. Okay, let's see what there's anything else. Oh, so there's another verse. It says, one who thinks the deity in the temple is made of wood or stone, one who thinks that the spiritual master in the disciplic succession is an ordinary person, one who thinks that a Vaishnava is a particular caste or creed, or one who thinks Chanamrit or Ganges water as ordinary water is certainly going to go to hell. That's from Padma Purana. There's a story here. Let me see if I can read my notes properly. In Treta Yuga, there was a Brahmin, very sinful Brahmin. His name was Sudarshan. He would eat, I guess, grains on the Ekadashi and criticize all the scriptures every day. And he'll criticize all the people who observed Ekadashi. One day in the morning, he died. The Yamdutas came to take him over to Yamloka. But when Yamraj saw him, he asked the secretary to narrate what kinds of sins and merits this person who had brought had accumulated. And he said that he looks like a very sinful person. But Chitragupta said, my dear Yamraj, he has not done any merits, but has only acquired sins. He even ate on the day of Ekadashi. He even ate on Janmashtami. It's the lowest of all mankinds. Therefore, he should be put in the worst hell we can think of for millions of years. But when Yamraj heard that, he said, okay, for the duration of the life of 100 Manus, send him to hell. After those millions of years, this person became a pig in a village. And you know what the pigs do? They eat stool. But after that, he became a crow. And what do crows do? Eat mucus. But one day he went to the house of a Brahmin where a pot of charnamrit was left outside the door. And he drank some charnamrit and he became free from all sins. On that day, he fell in the hunter's net and was killed. And he went to the abode of Lord Hari, carried on a palanquin by two devotees who looked like swans. That's the merit derived from drinking the water, drinking the charnamrit. Whoever listens to this narration about charnamrit also becomes free from all sins. I think we are okay now. So that's some of the notes that I had on charnamrit. I think very powerful.
Prabhuji, it was like the best saved for the end, something like that. How do they say that?
Yeah, no, I got it. Best for the last or best for the last or something. Anyway,
Right.
I know what you mean.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking me to narrate, because we need to remind ourselves of these things. Okay, all right. If there's no other comments, I say happy Janmashtami to all of you. Enjoy tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be able to attend the midnight Aarti. And all the best. Happy Janmashtami.
Happy
Thank you.
Janmashtami.
Happy Janmashtami.
Janmashtami, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.